Hi, my name's Roger Baylor, and I'm running for Mayor of New Albany as an independent candidate. And I'll begin my segment today by giving you a bit of biographical information about myself. I'm a lifelong resident of Floyd County. I'm not going to tell you which high school I went to. That might compromise your vote. The last 25 years I've lived in New Albany. My wife Diana is a native of Maine. She's a social worker at 7 County Services in Louisville. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree from IU Southeast. I went to college here as well. It's in philosophy with a minor in history. I've been a published writer, done columns for the News and Tribune and Leo Weekly, as well as a regular column for Food and Dining. And I served on some local and state boards. There's no political experience to speak of, which I'm inordinately proud. But I've been on a few boards, one of which is the Urban Enterprise Association, and also in statewide basis, the Brewers of Indiana Guild. I would point out also that I've maintained a blog on civic affairs called NA Confidential for the past 11 years. So many of you probably would know me as one of the co-owners of the New Albanian Brewing Company, better known as Sports Time Pizza and Rich O's Public House and Bank Street Brew House. I've been doing that since 1990. It's 25 years. And I'm quite proud of being an entrepreneur and a local independent business person, but we'll get to a bit more of that later on. First off, why would I be running for mayor then, especially as an independent? What makes me think that's important? Well, I think an independent candidate is capable of providing a genuine and a real choice for this race. Something different for a change. What I think we see in Floyd County, in New Albany and Floyd County, is that we have what would be called a duopoly. And this is a division of spoils between Democrats and Republicans. Republicans have the county offices, Democrats have the city offices. And this means that they're both able to achieve their aims, but it kind of squeezes some others out who don't fit in that really convenient two-party paradigm. So I would say that the revival that we've had these last few years, a lot of people would thank one or the other, but from my point of view as a local independent business person and an observer, is that much of our revitalization has occurred in spite of the party structures and not because of it, and that's why I'm running. So I won't kid you. I've voted Democratic most of my life, and so a lot of people would like to know then why did I just not run as a Democrat in the spring? I think that the local Democratic Party in the uppercase D sense is not tremendously Democratic in the lower D sense. I think that honestly I'm probably the only true genuine Democrat in this race, and I'm running on that basis. I'll give you an example of it. Last week we had a debate, League of Women Voters, which was at Silver Street Park. The incumbent at that gathering made a great play out of the number of parks he has built and how important that was specifically to good health for the people. They have parks to go to. I would say that, and I pointed out to him then, that it's not what I would expect a Democrat to say, because we live in a city where 1 out of 4 adults live below the poverty line, and 1 out of 5 children live below the poverty line. Poverty is a daily stressor, and poverty is a condition that precludes health. And so just to say that you're able to go to parks as some sort of quality of life really is ignoring some prevailing factors. There's some other underlying conditions too that I would expect the Democratic Party to address, and they generally don't. And that would be matters like affordable housing, income inequality, exclusionary zoning, the absence of a living wage. These are all things that in socioeconomic terms that would render the statement parks alone rather null and void. So I don't think it's enough just to say that. It's not enough just to build parks. It's not enough to say these things out loud. You have to actually do something. So here's what I'm going to try to do, and I'll try to summarize it briefly. It's overall, the overarching theme is TIE, T-I-E, and that stands for transparency and infrastructure and empowerment, and I have several subdivisions of this that I think will make sense. The overall principle behind it is that when the government acts to do something, that it should try whenever possible to connect those actions together. They should be interlocked, interwoven, so that one expenditure can compel or impel 3 good outcomes instead of just one. Nothing can be taken independently. We're too small to just do this or that. We have to do things together. So transparency, infrastructure, and empowerment. And I think that the most important part of that to start out with is honesty in government. Anyone who's been observing the scene these last few years will notice that it's been the most non-transparent City Hall in living memory. There's appointed boards like redevelopment that make decisions apart from elected officials. These decisions are made and then they're handed down for approval. It's not a collaborative process. The public input has largely been negated by this. There's infrequency of public meetings, these top-down decisions that are made, inconvenient meeting times for working people. If you have a job and the Board of Works meets at 10 o'clock in the morning, you have to take off work to go ask a question that you really shouldn't have to do that to achieve. We'll work on that. And it's also the inability of the city, or the unwillingness of the current city administration to work to use electronic medium. I mean, we have a website that's wildly variable in terms of content. We have a social media feed that's mostly used as a re-election device. It doesn't always present the information that people need to make decisions. So we'll work on that as well. So transparency would be manifested by equal governance and a level playing field. And we're going to have to do a deep cleansing at City Hall to achieve this. The management level tier at City Hall really has a corporate culture that needs to be freshened. And so the city employees, the guys on the shop floor, the guys and gals on the shop floor do the actual work. They're doing fine. They work hard. They need to work smarter, and that's management's issue, and we will work on that. We'll change that. Budgetary sanity is an important point too. We need a sane budget that is sustainable, and to kind of break this down into simple terms, what we have right now is a yearly budget that has every appearance of being balanced and every appearance of being equitable, but it does not include, it's not a perfect picture of where we are. We have a tremendous amount of bonded debt right now, and the bonded debt is the money we have borrowed against future property tax revenues and other revenues in order to finance nice shiny things that are being built, capital improvement projects. This doesn't show up on the budget. You might know from your own household finances that you can put a lot of money on a credit card and make minimum payments and your budget looks fine. That's rather the situation that we're in right now, so we're going to have to deal with it. It's a really good thing in many ways that we have these new parks, but a water park is just a water park. Your children, your grandchildren enjoy playing at it, and it's a good thing that they do because they're still going to be paying for the water park 20 years from now when they're grown up and have kids of their own and jobs of their own, and their property taxes then won't be available to use for things that will come up in those next 20 years because they're captured just to pay for this pool, for this water park. So it's something to think about. And it's also it's a price versus opportunity cost equation. There's a price for something. The aquatic center, the water park cost $9 million, but that's $9 million that, well, first of all, might not have been spent at all, but if it was going to be spent, it might have been spent on something that was a better investment in the future, a better investment in what TIF bonds were actually intended to do, and what TIF bonds were intended to do was to drive forward economic development. We're not hearing very much about economic development right now, and that's my next key point. We're not hearing very much about that because we're calling anything that we spend TIF money on and automatically becomes economic development. And that's just not right. That's just not accurate. The traditional way that we've done economic development here is to leave the small local independent business sector on its own with really no assistance at all, and then to focus our efforts on larger companies and mostly focus them on somewhere else because that's usually the economic development mechanism. You look somewhere else and say, can we lure a company from somewhere to here? Well, overall in the United States of America, that's just an even process. One community loses a business and it comes to our community and we gain it, and then we lose one too. It's just shuffling the board is all it is. Stats show nationwide that this form of economic development is increasingly inefficient and it's not actually growing anything. And the particular local challenge that we have on this is that River Ridge Commerce Center is underway at Jeffersonville. It has been enabled and intended and financed and polished by the state of Indiana to be the regional attraction for the sort of businesses that we have traditionally lavished abatements and incentives and subsidies on. So it's going to be increasingly difficult for us in New Albany to even make that come close to working. So what we need to do is think about it a different way. The candidate, or the current mayor, campaigned 4 years ago on a basis of jobs, said he was going to be the jobs mayor. Since he said that, we've lost Pillsbury, we've lost Stemwood, we've lost Indaitis, and Indaitis, the Indaitis effect is particularly bad because Indaitis was a modern high-tech company that couldn't get what it needed here and moved to Louisville, and subsequently President Obama visited to thank them for being so good. We lost him for many reasons, but we lost him for the absence of a modern infrastructure for communications, fiber optic communications This is something that we desperately need here for the new economy, and we don't have it. We don't have any plan to get it. And it's not just high-speed internet in one place or another, it's the city. This is an infrastructure need. It's just as much of an infrastructure need as streets or sewers. We need to reckon with that very quickly. Louisville is likely to have Google fiber at some point. There's a trunk line going through Jeffersonville. If we don't get on this system, that we're going to be way behind the curve when it comes to economic development in the future. Now, the solution I would advocate for this is to more emphasis on the local economy. Local economy solution is what we're talking about. This is local independent businesses. These are the engine of growth. The money spent at local independent businesses stays in the community longer and recirculates. It doesn't bleed away as it does with a chain or franchise going to corporate money someplace else. The government can't obviously pay for all these things any more than it should for a larger business, but it can definitely help incubate and pollinate and operate the city's infrastructure in a way that enhances the efforts of the entrepreneurs and the local independent businesses and doesn't work against them. We can also do grassroots economic development initiatives. We can spread risks and rewards, and we can empower people locally to try to do job training and try to increase their prospects. Now, infrastructure is an important part of that. I already said fiber optic is definitely infrastructure. Infrastructure is not sexy, it's just necessary, it's just essential. It's streets and sidewalks and sewers and stormwater and all the things we need to do every day, not every now and then, in order to keep the city moving properly. These are needs, they're not wants. Now, one of the needs that we have that pertain primarily to downtown but have certainly a ripple effect in other areas of the city would be two-way streets. And many of you would know that this is a particular advocacy of mine. But it's not the only thing I have to say, and I hope you'll agree. The one-way streets that we have now downtown, these arterials that go through downtown, there's three of them. There's Market and Spring and Elm, and these were imposed on us 50 years ago in other times when the priority was suburbanization, and times have now changed, and we're going to have to change with them because there's renewed emphasis on the ability of urban areas, densely populated downtown urban areas to lead. And so we're going to have to change this. We must become a walkable and bikeable downtown. The facts and the evidence have been presented on this. It's true all across the country. There's almost no countermanding evidence to any of this. So we must implement the Jeff Speck Downtown Street Network proposal over a 120 square block area at our first opportunity. It would be a complete correct use of economic development funds and TIF funds for that, because it's going to have, among other things, the effect of helping independent local business. The facts nationwide prove this again and again. One-way streets hurt, two-way streets help. In the neighborhoods, it will increase safety for walkers, bikers, children, all forms of recreation, multimodal forms of recreation on these streets, and moving back and forth between places with bicycles. This will help. It will decrease crime. It's a proven effect. More eyes on the street, decrease crime. When people walk more, they see things. And when they can walk in a pleasurable way without semi-trucks racing past them, then it improves everybody's life. It's a quality of life issue. And none of this, it needs to be noted, none of this impedes the use of the commercial streets by other vehicles. Commercial vehicles of any sort, they just travel more slowly. That's it. Now, we're going to do that. Ordinance enforcement and rental registration are two big topics too, pertain not just to downtown but all across the city. The rule of law in this town for many years has always yielded to palm greasing, and we need to change that. It needs to be equal governance, it needs to be level playing fields, codes need to be enforced everywhere, equally, uniformly. Need to do a much better job of that. Rental property registration is a must. We cannot continue to tolerate this completely unregulated part of the market when it comes to basic daily human habitation. That is hypocrisy to say that it's more important to deal with other things than it is to where people live 24 hours a day. It's lunacy to have no laws covering basic human habitation space, which segues into democracy and social justice. And I'm gonna stress this as well, that human rights are a non-negotiable mandate. We've had some issues this year with council people who don't seem to understand that. Respect for human rights and freedoms has to start with the city's employees and the city's own people, and we'll make sure that happens. We will make sure that happens. There's so much more to talk about in terms of platform planks, and I'll try to wrap it up. There's the importance of community-oriented policing. We have to have a lot of police on the ground interacting with the community. Infill housing to remediate the demolition of structures that probably could be rehabbed. Public art, we need to keep hands off that and inspire that from the grassroots. Recognition of placemaking, urban design principles, we're way behind the times on these. City needs to hire a full-time grant writer to help fund these projects. The importance of historic preservation is paramount. That adds value to the community. Trees, shade, green thinking. If you ever walked underneath a tree when the sun is out, you know what I'm talking about. We need more. Need to think about that. Environmental issues are currently not being emphasized. And I'm going to close with something that was a quote by the incumbent that he made last week at the debate, the League of Women Voters debate. He pointed out that Roger never has done anything, has never done anything in a positive manner to help the city of New Albany. I know that that's part of political boilerplate. I get that. It's just trying to rile up your opponent. But I want to point out in rebuttal to this that he wasn't just insulting me, but he was insulting every entrepreneur, every local business owner, every contractor, every developer who's gone about their business in this town without their hand out looking for something. There's a lot of them that have been the ones behind the resurgence. I've already said how local independent businesses recirculate the money. In my experience in New Albany Brewing Company for the last 25 years, we have created jobs. We've been grinding it out every day, all year long. It's a daily thing. We don't just do it during special occasions, and we enable employees. We provide opportunities. We've paid taxes. More so than that, we were not a chain. That money, a lot of that money stayed here, and that's really important. We're not the Disney Corporation, we're not a concert promoter. We run our business. Independent local businesses like the one I own, like the one many of you might own, and I thought I would add to this that some of you may not know this, that although I'm running for mayor, whether I win or lose in November the 4th, or 3rd, 4th, whenever the election is, I'm going to sell my shares of the business to my partners at NABC. I'm getting out of the business after 25 years. I thought maybe at the age of 55 it might be a good time for me to decide what I want to do when I grow up, and the first thing I want to do when I grow up is hopefully be mayor. If not, then I'll find something else. But what I wanted to say is that I'm really proud of that past quarter century being in the independent local business, being in the restaurant business, being in the brewery business. I'm very proud of that. Like others who've done this sort of thing, I've had every bit of skin in the game that I have to throw into it, invested my life savings in it. We created jobs. I busted, my partners and I, we busted our butts on this for all these years. Created jobs, we mentored, we educated, we donated to worthy causes, and more so than all that, every single day we opened the doors and we tried to make people happy. We tried to perform a service and have a fair exchange of money for service. And I'm going to walk away from this, and I'm not going to take a whole lot with me because we always reinvested in the business itself, and I'm fine with that because NABC is going to be good. It's on strong footing. And I just wonder, I look at the people who make the economic development decisions at the civic, municipal level, and I think to myself, did any of you ever actually own a business? And not many of them did. And I think that's important because they're missing something, not having done that. So, a close friend of mine said it best with reference to the last 4 years. A major thing that has caused me to want to run for mayor to begin with. And he said that we keep electing people who function as the absentee dad in a dysfunctional family, shows up on random weekends, take the kids out to the water park, buy them some ice cream. Meanwhile, mom's at home doing the heavy lifting. And what we really need in this town is that we need that mom who's doing the hard work during the week. And I would like to think of me and my campaign for mayor as an independent, that I'm Mayor Mom. I'm willing to function in that role. Let's try something different for a change. We talk a lot about how things need to change, but let's try something different. And let's go back to some basics. Trust matters. Honesty counts. And when these things happen, shift happens. Shift does happen. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm David Abersold.